Reading an essay, right? I left in the middle of the essay because I had some work. Kind of. Anyway, it was 150, right? Economic inequality. This is not it. But I'd love to read that. That looks good. How to make Pittsburgh a startup? Here it is. We were here, right? That means you're 0.8% ahead. This is all red. These independent restaurants and cafes are not for just feeding people. They'll be there here. So here is my first concrete recommendation for turning Pittsburgh into a next Silicon Valley. Do everything you can to encourage this youth-driven food boom. What could the city do? Treat the people starting these little restaurants and cafes as your users. Go ask them what they want. I can guess at least one thing they might want: fast permit process. San Francisco has left you a huge amount of room to beat them in that department. I know restaurants aren't the prime mover though. The prime mover, as the Time article said, is cheap housing. That's a big advantage. But the phrase cheap housing is a bit misleading. There are plenty of places that are cheaper. What's special about Pittsburgh is not that it's cheap, but that it's cheap place you'd actually want to live. Part of that buildings is the buildings themselves. I realized a long time ago, back when I was a poor 20 something myself, that the best deals were places that had once been rich and then became poor. If a place has always been rich, it's nice but too expensive. If a place has always been poor, it's cheap but grim. But if a place was once rich and then got poor, you can find places for cheap. And that's what bringing people here. When Pittsburgh was rich 100 years ago, the people who lived there built big, solid buildings, not always in the best taste, but definitely solid. Definitely solid. So here is another piece of advice for becoming a startup hub. Don't destroy the buildings that are bringing people here. The cities are on the way back up. Like Pittsburgh is now, developers race to tear down our old buildings. Don't let that happen. Focus on historic preservation. Big real estate development projects are not what's bringing the 20-somethings here. They are the opposite of new restaurants and cafes. They have subtract personality from the city. The empirical evidence suggests that you cannot be too strict about historic prevention. The tougher cities are about it, the better they seem to do. But the appeal of Pittsburgh is not just the buildings themselves, it's the neighborhoods they are in, like San Francisco and New York. Pittsburgh is fortunate in being a pre-car city. It's not too spread out, because those 25 to 29 years old do not like driving. They prefer walking, bicycling, or taking public transport. If you've been into San Francisco recently, you can't help noticing the huge number of bicyclists. And this is not a fad that 20-somethings have adopted. In this respect, they have discovered a better way to live. The beards will go, not the bikes. Cities where you can get around without driving are just better, period. Better, period. So I would suggest you to do everything you can to capitalize this. As the historic preservation, it seems impossible to go too far. Why not make Pittsburgh the most bicycle and pedestrian friendly city in the country? See if you can go so far that you can make San Francisco seem backward by comparison. If you do, it's very unlikely you will regret it. The city will seem like a paradise to young people you want to attract. If they do leave to get the jobs elsewhere, it will be a regret at leaving behind such a place. And what's the downside? Can you imagine the headline, city ruined by becoming too bicycle friendly? It just doesn't happen. So suppose cool old neighborhoods and cool little restaurants make this the next Portland. Will that be enough? I will put you in a way better position than Portland itself. Because Pittsburgh has something Portland lacks, a first rate research facility, university. CMU plus Little Casey Cafes means you have more than hipsters drinking lattes. It means you have hipsters drinking lattes while talking about distributed systems. Now you're getting really close to San Francisco. The fact you're better off than San Francisco in one way because CMU is downtown, but Stanford and Berkeley are out in the suburbs. What can CMU do to help Pittsburgh become a startup hub? Be an even better research facility. CMU is one of the best universities in the world, but imagine what things would be like if they were the best, very best, and everyone knew it. There are a lot of ambitious people who must go to the best place wherever it is. If CMU were it, they would all come here. There would be kids in Kazakhstan dreaming one day to live in Pittsburgh. Being that kind of talent magnet is the most important contribution universities can make towards them making their city a startup hub. In fact, it is practically one of the only contributions they make. But wait, shouldn't universities be setting up programs with words like innovation, entrepreneurship in their names? No, they should not. These kinds of things almost turn out to be disappointments. They're pursuing the wrong targets. The way to get innovation is not to aim for innovation but to aim for something more specific, like better batteries or better 3D printing. And the way to learn about entrepreneurship is to do it, which you can't in school. I know it might disappoint some administrators to hear that best thing in a university that best thing a university can do to encourage startups is to become a is to be a great university. It's like telling people who want to lose weight that the way to do is to eat less. But if you want to know where startups come from, look at the empirical evidence. Look at the histories of the most successful startups. You will find they grow organically out of a couple of founders building something that starts as an interesting side project. Universities are great at building together founders, but beyond that, best thing they can do is get out of the way. For example, by not claiming ownership of intellectual property that students and faculty develop, and by having liberal rules about deferred admission and leaves of absence. In fact, one of the most effective things a university could do is encourage startups is an elaborate form of getting out of the way invented by Harvard. Harvard used to have exams for fall semesters after Christmas. At the beginning of January, they had something called reading period, when you were supposed to be studying for exams. And Microsoft and Facebook have something common that few people realize. They were both started during the reading period. It's the perfect situation for producing the sort of side projects that turn into startups. The students are all on campus, but they don't have anything to do because they're supposed to be studying for exams. Harvard may have closed this window because a few years ago they moved exams before Christmas and shortened the reading period from 11 days to 7. But if a university really wanted to help its students start startups, the empirical evidence, weighed by market cap, suggests that the best thing they can do is literally nothing. The culture of Pittsburgh is another of its strengths. It seems like a city that has to be socially liberal to be a startup hub, and it's pretty clear why. A city has to tolerate strangeness to be a home for startups, because startups are so strange, and you can't choose to allow just the forms of strangeness that will turn into big startups because they're all intermingled. You have to tolerate all strangeness. That immediately rules out big chunks of US. I'm optimistic it doesn't rule out Pittsburgh. One of the things I remember from growing up here, though I didn't realize at that time that there was something unusual about it, is how well people get along. I'm still not sure why. Maybe one reason is that everyone felt like an immigrant. When I was a kid in Monroe Valley, Monroe Valley, Monroe, what the fuck is that? Anyway, in Monroe, people didn't call themselves American. They called themselves Italian, Serbian, Ukrainian. Just imagine what it must have been like here 100 years ago when people were pouring from 20 different countries. Tolerance was the only option. What I remember about the culture of Pittsburgh is that it was both tolerant and pragmatic. That's how I describe the culture of Silicon Valley too. And it's not a coincidence because Pittsburgh was the Silicon Valley of its time. This was a city where people built new things, and while the things people built have changed, the spirit you need to do the kind of work is the same. So, although an influx of latest swiling hipsters may be annoying in some ways, I would go out of my way to encourage them, and more generally to tolerate strangeness, even unto a degree. Waco Californians do. For Pittsburgh, that is a conservative choice. It's a return to a city's roots. Unfortunately, I saved the toughest part for the last. This is one more thing you need to be doing. You need to be a startup hub, and Pittsburgh hasn't got it. Investors. Silicon Valley has a big investor community because it had 50 years to grow one. New York, New York has a big investor community because it has full of people who like money a lot and are quick to notice new ways to get it. But Pittsburgh has neither of these, and the cheap housing that draws other people here has no effect on investors. If an investor community grows up here, it will happen the same way it did in Silicon Valley, slowly and organically. So I would not bet on having big investor community in a short term, but fortunately there are three trends that make that less necessary than it used to be. One is that the startups are increasingly cheap to start, so you just don't need as much outside money as you used to. The second is that thanks to things like Kickstarter, a startup can get revenue faster. You can put something on Kickstarter from anywhere. The third is programs like Y Combinator. A startup from anywhere in the world can go to YC for 3 months, pick up funding, and then return to home if they want. My advice is to make Pittsburgh a great place for startups, and gradually more of them will stick. Some of those will succeed, some of their founders will receive investors, and still more startups will stick. This is not a fast path to becoming a startup hub, but it is at least a path, which is something few other cities have. And it's not as if you have to make painful sacrifices in the meantime. Think about what I've suggested you should do. Encourage local restaurants, save old buildings, take advantage of density, make CMU the best, promote tolerance. These are the things that make Pittsburgh good to live in now. All I'm saying is that you should do even more of them. And that's an encouraging thought. If Pittsburgh's path is to becoming a startup is to be even more itself, then it has good chance of succeeding. In fact, it probably has the best chance of any city its size. It will take some effort and a lot of time, but if any city can do it, Pittsburgh can. Cool. Let's summarize. That was fast. 14 minutes. Okay. All right. So the name would be how build a startup hub Pittsburgh case. So, what does Silicon Valley has that other cities don't? Why is that a startup hub? So the first thing we will be having is young people. First thing, young people. The most the average age of standard startup founders is usually between 25 to 29. So place is something young people wanna live in, you will have more of them. More of them. Not just founders, but the Talent Hub only grow with these people. If you can't find them, then startups miss out on important stuff. Next is finally since they are broke, cheap housing helps. Since they are young, they need better of living. In previous generations. like the city. Hmm. Strong. Wow. As well as in there are advantages and would never like to leave. welcome. Okay, let's go to the next one. Life is short. Let's see what he thinks. We also have to question these things, right? I know he's very smart, but maybe questioning will make us smart. Let's do that from today. Life is short, as everyone knows. Not many know. And so as a kid, I used to wonder about this. Is life actually short, or are we really complaining about this finiteness? Would we be just as likely to feel life if we lived 10 times as long? Since didn't seem any way to answer this question, I stopped wondering about it. Then I had kids. That gave me a way to answer the question. The answer is that life actually is short. Having kids showed me how to convert a continuous quantity, time, to discrete quantities. You only get 52 weekends with your 2-year-old. If Christmas as magic lasts from, say, 3 to 10, you only get to watch your child experience it 8 times. And while it's impossible to say what is a lot or a little of a continuous quantity like time, 8 is not a lot of something. If you had a handful of 8 peanuts or a shelf of 8 books to choose from, the quality would definitely seem limited, no matter what your lifespan was. Okay, so life is actually short. Does it make any difference to know that? It has for me. It means arguments of the form life is too short for X have great force. It's not just a figure of speech to say the life is too short for something. It's not just a synonym for annoying. If you find yourself thinking that life is too short for something, you should try to eliminate it if you can. It's not just a figure of speech to say that life is too short for something. So you mean it when you say life is too short for something. But when I ask myself that I found this life too short for, The word that pops into my head is bullshit. I realize that answer is somewhat tautological. It's almost the definition of bullshit. That is the stuff that life is too short for. And yet, bullshit does have a distinctive character. There is something fake about it. It's a junk food of experience. If you ask yourself what you spend your time on, that's bullshit, you probably already know your answer. Unnecessary meetings, pointless disputes, bureaucracy, posturing, dealing with other people's mistakes, traffic jams, addictive but unrewarding pastimes. There are two ways this kind of thing gets in your life. It's either forced on you or it tricks you. To some extent, you have to put up with this bullshit forced on you by circumstances. You need to make money, and making money consists mostly of errands. Indeed, the law of supply and demand ensures that the more rewarding some kind of work is, the cheaper people will do it. It may be less bullshit if you forced. It may be that less bullshit is forced on you than you think, though. There has always been a stream of people who opt out of the default grind and go live somewhere with opportunities. Where opportunities are fewer in the conventional sense, but life feels more authentic. This could become more common. You can do it on a smaller scale without moving. The amount of time you have to spend on bullshit varies from between employers. The most large organizations are steeped in it. But if you concisely prioritize bullshit avoidance over other factors like money and prestige, you can probably find employers that will waste less of your time. If you are a freelancer or a small company, you can do this at the level of individual customers. If you fire or avoid toxic customers, you can decrease the amount of bullshit in your life by more than you decrease your income. But while some amount of bullshit is inevitably forced on you, the bullshit that sneaks into your life by tricking you is no one's fault but your own. And yet, the bullshit you choose may be harder to eliminate than the bullshit that's forced on you. Things that lure you into wasting your time, have to be really good at tricking you. An example that will be familiar to a lot of people is arguing online. If someone contradicts you, they're in a sense attacking you, sometimes pretty overtly. Your instinct when attacked is to defend yourself. But like lots of instincts, this one wasn't designed for the world we now live in. Counterintuitive as it feels, it's best most of the time not to defend yourself. Otherwise, these people are literally taking your life. Arguing online is only incidentally addictive. There are more dangerous things than that. As I've written before, one byproduct of the technical progress is that things we like tend to become more addictive, which means we will increasingly have to make a conscious effort to avoid addictions, to stand outside ourselves and ask, is this how I want to be spending my time? As well as avoiding bullshit, you should actively seek out things that matter. But different things matter to different people, and most have to learn what matters to them. A few are lucky and realize early on that they love math and taking care of animals or writing, and then figure out a way to spend a lot of time doing it. But most people start out with a life that's a mix of things that matter and things that don't, and gradually learn to distinguish between them. For the young especially, much of this confusion is induced by artificial situations they find themselves in. In the middle school and high school, what the other kids think of you seems to be the most important thing in the world. But when you ask adults what they got in wrong at that age, nearly all say they care too much about what other kids thought of them. One heuristic for distinguishing stuff that matters is to ask yourself whether you will care about it in the future. And heuristic. Oh my god. He's speaking programmer's language. Fake stuff that matters usually has a sharp peak of seeming to matter. That's how it tricks you. The area under the curve is small, but the shape jabs you into your consciousness like a pin. The things that matter aren't necessarily the only people would call important. Having coffee with friends matters. You won't feel later that it was a waste of time. Great thing about having small children is that they make you spend time on things that matter them. They grab your sleeve while you're staring at your phone and say, "Will you play with me?" And the odds are that, in fact, the bullshit minimizing option. Life is short. We should expect its shortness to take us by surprise. And that is what tends to happen. You take things for granted and then they are gone. You think you can always write that book or climb that mountain or whatever, and then you realize the window has closed. The saddest windows close when other people's die. Their lives are too short. After my mother died, I wished I'd spent more time with her. I lived as if she'd always be there, and in her typical quiet way, she encouraged that illusion. But an illusion it was. I think a lot of people make the same mistake I did. Usually, way to avoid being taken by surprise by something is to be consciously aware of it. BRB. Huh? Hey, bro, don't be crazy, bro. I'm not ready. All Alright, we're back. We're back. Everything's working, right? Alright, everything is working. The usual way to avoid being taken by surprise by something is to be consciously aware of it. Back when the life was more precious, people used to be aware of death, and to a degree, that would seem a bit morbid. I'm not sure why, but it doesn't seem the right answer to be constantly reminding yourself oneself the grim reaper hovering about everyone's shoulder. Perhaps the better solution is to look at the problem from the other end. Cultivate a habit of impatience about the things you most want to do. Don't wait before climbing that mountain or writing that book or visiting your mother. You don't need to be constantly reminding yourself why you shouldn't wait. Just don't wait. I can think of two more things that one does when one doesn't have much of something. Try to get more of it and savor what one has. Both make sense here. How you live, affects how long you live. Most people could do better, me among them, but you can probably get even more effort by paying closer attention to the time you have. It's easy to let the good days rush by. The flow that imaginative people love so much that has darker cousin that prevents you from pausing to save a life amid the daily slurry of errands and alarms. One of the most striking things I read was not in a book but in the title of one, James Sattler's Burning the Days. It is possible to slow time somewhat. I've gotten better at it. Kids help. When you have small children, there are a lot of moments so perfect that you can't help noticing. It does help too to feel that you've squeezed everything out of some experience. The reason I'm sad about my mother is not just that I miss her, but I think that out of all things we could have done, that we didn't. My oldest son will be 7 soon. While I miss the 3-year-old version of him, I at least don't have any regrets over what have happened. We had the best time a daddy and 3-year-old ever had. Relentless, pure, prone, relentlessly prone bullshit. Don't wait to do things that matter. Savor the time you have. That's what you do when life is short. Pruning. Everything is just like programmer's language. I can see it. This is programmer's vocabulary, not normal people's. Anyways, this is life is short. It's not easy actually. Learning to be in front of a camera is not easy. Talking to a camera is not easy. But I started talking to it directly, which was terrible, and then now I'm doing live streams where I look at my screen and read whatever there is. It's very easy. And now I'm speaking directly to the camera and it doesn't feel like I'm doing something new. Right? It feels like the same thing that I was doing back when I was reading. But better, it's all my thoughts, right? Now I've become comfortable with it, right? I've become so comfortable with it, I can speak for hours and not get shy or hesitate, right? I can just come back here every day and put on the camera and speak. This became easy. Now the next step for me is to actually start making videos better. Maybe videos on topics, right? Maybe I can just put Life is Short as a video and talk about the shit that I've read back then, right? But in a better way, from me, from my thoughts, in my way, right? That will be great. We should do that. We should do that. We should really do that. That's the next level, right? Once you start speaking in that way, making short videos, once I get comfortable in it, I can start editing or strategizing the things I do, right? Every day make a video of yourself speaking your essay, right? Each essay is a new video, obviously. Oh fuck, what did I do? Okay, thousands. Oh, that sucks. Anyway. Life is actually short. Actually short. Short. Long summers. Nice. Short. She's not the problem. Hello.